So Dick, you've traveled a lot, you've lived a lot of places since you started performing, and I imagine you've had a lot of interesting collaborations along the way and made some souvenir friendships as you went, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about some of those.
So I landed in Chicago for the longest stint. So I was there for 18 years before I moved back to Iowa. But I lived in Denver for a while. I was in Minneapolis for a small amount. I tried LA and I ran back to Denver. It was too much for me. So during that little journey, or journeys I should say, when I was in Denver is kind of when I first started messing around with music. I met a guy who was a guitar player we worked at the same job, and we'd come over and do covers and hang out and act like morons. And then I eventually got into like this band trying to write original music, and I kind of kept repeating that pattern of like trying to work with these folks and these folks. And it was actually when I moved here to Cedar Rapids, when, as I mentioned earlier with this band Bomb Pop and Quentin Duarte, like I started kind of feeling like I want to write my own stuff. I didn't feel like, even though I was working with, good musicians, like not being able to capture the spirit of these songs. And so I really kind of got forced into it. Like, to me, playing guitar is a writing instrument more than, I'm not a great player, so I just kind of use it more as a writing instrument. And then I was fortunate to meet like Josh Shapira in Chicago, who's produced a few of my records, Weightless, Fizzle Buzzy, and then the Minus Thieves record, meeting the guys from, Pat from Wilco and all those cats, meeting them while I was I met some of those guys prior to even working with them, so became friends with some of those guys. So it's been music's been really cool to find folks who identify the same way, who have the same nucleus of a thought, the way that you want to do things, and kind of be free and not get pinned down to maybe a 9-to-5-er. And though I do those things, I do have a 9-to-5 job, because it fuels me to be able to afford to write my own music and not feel like I have to play in a cover band and just sing for my supper.
There are two schools of thought with that, right? One is, okay, I've just got to be disciplined and throw myself into the music, and whether it sinks or swims, I have to commit to that. And then I would imagine it's pretty liberating to be able to compartmentalize a little bit, and shut that off and have money in the bank so that you can relax into your art.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick Rubin actually just mentioned this recently, and I appreciated him saying it, because he said that I think more musicians should get day jobs instead of trying to eke out their living through music, because it's almost impossible. It really, really is. Now, again, I go back to cover bands, and it's no slight on cover bands by any stretch. I think people get confused when I start talking about cover bands. I don't want to do it because for the amount of time it would take me to learn someone else's music, I'd rather just write my own. So that's kind of a selfish way of looking at music for me personally. But also, what I've seen, and it's not only in this community, it's in Des Moines as well, it's in other communities, where you spend, you're like, I want to play, and then you play in 8 different bands, but you're not concentrating on one thing to make something happen. If you spread yourself that thin, and it's very often I'm like approached by guys who play in these bands, man, I really wish I was doing what you're doing. I'm like, well, you can, just get a day job and work on your craft. And because the gamble of doing this is so high, it's the idea of this really popping and making me a popular artist. I'm 55 years old. I've been doing this, since my first record coming out when I was 28 or 29. It's been a long journey, but I've been able to write what I want to write, perform what I want to perform, and not have to feel like I'm doing something that that I have envy of someone else doing that. So that's really where I come from.
It's amazing to me watching musicians who click. It becomes this real web of connections, doesn't it?
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
kind of like when you find a good doctor, and then they turn you on to another doctor, and as long as you get a good one in the beginning, you're set.
Right,
and
exactly.
the same is true with musicians.
Well, and being in Des Moines now, like there's a great thing at XBK Live. It's a fantastic venue. And they do this thing called Monday Night Live, and it's hosted by Ann and Dave Deschamps Jones. And they started it in one venue, and then they moved it to this larger venue because it had become so popular. And what they do is they take an artist, like a local or regional artist, and they learn their stuff, and then they showcase them. And from them picking me to do that last year, I guess it was last spring, it was fantastic because it it gave me these connections. It introduced me to Ben Mars, who's playing bass with me, and Brian Vanderpool, who plays drums, but also owns the studio, Golden Bear Records, that I made the record in. And I got reacquainted with a guy named Jay Schneider, who plays guitar and also plays keyboards with us. And now his brother Jay is our multi-instrumentalist. So just that kind of stuff is so key. And I think it's key to put those in a community like this. So, you know, musicians can get together and start to understand, like, we're not alone in this. And I become, you know, I didn't have that here in Cedar Rapids. You know, I will admit, I have it in Des Moines, because it is a community who's really supporting each other. We all go out to each other's shows, and it reminds me of being in Chicago, just in a much, you know, smaller space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
All right, for your next song, let's go back in time a little further.
All right.
Can you play something that's a little older for us?
I will play something that's a little older. How's that sound?
All right.
I'll go off an EP called Ink, and it's my self-produced record, and so here we go. Let's try this. So this tune, I talked about con artists earlier, and this one really kind of highlights that. I kind of started writing it not knowing what it was about, and often I do that. I just kind of start, a phrase feels right in my mouth, to be quite honest. I know that sounds strange, and follows the arrangement, and then it's kind of a surprise for me once I get to the end. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a purging of sorts that I put together, and so this is an example of that. So. Under the message you kept for yourself, your heart's getting tangled and pushed to the shelf of a bedroom wall. Oh, you're never lying down and catching the bit, oh. When ownership passes from one silly thing to the next polyphonic song you couldn't sing, there's a crescent moon. So hang on and hang on and hang on and don't move. Don't move. You ride a nice white horse on your sinking ship. You never hurt no one with your kung fu grip. You got a great smile, each fine muscle locked and tight. You wanna show some mercy, but all your saline's dry. Your saline's dry. You never work enough to get your silver head, relying on yourself for a pointed cred. Get you where you go. And hello, 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 you hammered out a brightly colored plan, using up those little plastic tabs. The test of failing, save your self-control. Cell towers bending to catch every phrase of a well-crafted dialogue, shot from the stage, how you got 'em now. So hang up, turn it off, you're gonna run it in the ground. You're a surefire hero in children's books. Give 'em 2-star service, 5-star looks. You're such a clean boy. One commission with deep set eyes. You wanna raise your volume and double up your size. You're double-sized. You never work enough to get yourself ahead, relying on yourself for a pointed cred. It takes you where you go. Hello, 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 you hammered out a brightly colored plan, using up those little plastic tabs. The tests are failing, save your self-control. You ride a nice white horse on your sinking ship. You never hurt no one with your kung fu grip. You got a great smile, each fat muscle locked in tight. You wanna show some mercy, but oh, your saline's dry. Oh, your sailing's dry. Are you never working enough to get yourself ahead? Relying on yourself upon it crest. Thank you very much, guys.